shocked because I'm not tech savvy. So anyway, for those who are joining us on Facebook, YouTube, Powerhouse TV, Powerhouse Radio, and the other different platforms that we've been being shared on, welcome to Purpose Life Church here in Springfield, Tennessee. Glad you guys are all here joining us. I encourage you to take some notes today. If you have your Bibles, we're going to be Matthew chapter 25, verses 14 through 29, and Luke chapter 16, verse 10. So, my title today is Moving Up. Moving Up. I find it kind of humorous because Donna just gave a testimony, and she's talking about moving up. And I've not told anybody what my sermon title is going to be. So, I just love how little bits of confirmation take place. So Matthew chapter 25, verse 14 through 29, and then Luke 16, verse 10. And I'm going to be reading from the New American Standard Bible, and that tends to be my go-to. A lot of that is because New American Standard tends to be, for me, one of the closest ones that is close to the original language in translation, and yet the easiest to understand for most people. And so I learned this back long time ago when I was in college. So King James is written 1611 type language, and if you're really wanting to stick to 1611 King James, most people would not be able to read true 1611 King James because of how it's written, and there are F's that we now translate as S. And I mean, so there's a lot of different aspects. For a little while, I used to teach and preach out of the NIV, New International Version. And the reason I used to do that is because it's written on the 8th grade reading level, which at that point in time, most people had that reading level. Now, I mean, I'm just giving you a little history fact here real quick before we get into the Word. Now, we have the Message Bible, and there's a lot of debate and stuff on that, but that is written on 5th grade reading level. And I hate to say this, but they're now trying to work on a translation that most of current graduates out of high school, what their reading level is. Can anybody care to guess? 3rd grade. 3rd grade. So, I mean, it's really, really sad, and we won't get into that. But so, but I stick to the New American Standard, and the reason is because it's closest to a translation of the original scriptures, and yet something that most everybody can at least kind of understand, get a grasp. So, Matthew chapter 25, verse 14 through 29, and it says this: "For it is just like a man about to go on a journey, who called his own slaves and entrusted his possessions to them." Verse 15, "To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, each according to his own ability, and he went on his journey." Now, there's a key phrase there. Each according to his own ability. Okay? He knew what the ability was of each one of those slaves or their servants, of what they could handle. He knew that there was a slave that could handle 5, and there was a slave that couldn't handle more than 1. So he gave accordingly. So verse 16, "Immediately the one who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them and gained 5 more talents." Verse 17, "In the same manner, the one who had received the 2 talents gained 2 more. Verse 18, "But he who received the 1 talent went away and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. Now after a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with them." Verse 20, "The one who had received the 5 talents came up and brought 5 more talents, saying, 'Master, you entrusted 5 talents to me. See, I have gained 5 more talents.' His master said to him, 'Well done, good and faithful slave,' or servant. You were faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master." Verse 22, Also, the one who had received the 2 talents came up and said, Master, you entrusted 2 talents to me. See, I have gained 2 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful slave. You were faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. Verse 24, and the one also who had received the 1 talent came up and said, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. Verse 25, and I was afraid, and went away, and hid your talent in the ground. See, you have what is yours. But his master answered and said to him, You wicked, lazy slave, you knew that I reap where I did not sow, and gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have put my money in the bank, and on my arrival I would have received my money back with interest. Therefore take away the talent from him, and give it to the one who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has more shall be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who shall... Sorry, I lost my spot for just a second. So let's start this over with verse 29. For to everyone who has, more shall be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who does not have, even what he does have shall be taken away. Throw out the worthless slave into the outer darkness, and in that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. In Luke 16, verse 10, it says, He who is faithful in a very little thing is faithful also in much, and he who is faithful with the unrighteous in a very little thing is unrighteous also in much. So we're going to talk about faithfulness today. We have lots of people that they desire to move up into something better, whatever that thing may be. They want to move to the next. They want to move to the better. They want to move to whatever that up is. And we have to understand a basic principle of moving up. What is the basic principle? I'm glad you asked there, Tom. Faithfulness in a little. Faithfulness in a little. Faithfulness is not, if you're taking notes, I encourage you to write this down. Faithfulness is not, I am trusting the Lord, so I'm going to sit and wait for him to do so I can have. That's not faithfulness. Okay? Faithfulness is, I am trusting the Lord, so I am doing or working in what I have as a responsibility. So now I'm being responsible in what I have now, so I am ready for when the move up happens. See, we have a lot of twisted aspects of understanding of terms and words in Scripture. And when it comes to faithfulness, we tend to really twist this. We tend to think that faithfulness means I'm trusting the Lord, I'm using the right verbiage, and in using the right verbiage, that's going to make it okay for me to sit and do nothing. And we have this move that has taken place in our culture and really in the church realm as a whole, that if we're walking in a relationship with Jesus and if we're having faith in Jesus and everything's about Jesus, then it's not about doing. Well, if I'm walking in faith, James 1:22 says, if I have faith, I should have an aspect of doing going with it. Because if I don't have the work or I don't have the doing, then do I really have faith? You can't have one without the other. Does that make sense? Okay? I cannot be a person of faith if I don't understand that there's the do or the work that goes with it. And I cannot have the aspect of, well, if I do the right things and if I work the right things, then I'll get there. You can't do that without faith. You have to have the balance or the combination of the two. And most of us, in our walk of faith, we want to move up to the level and to the place in every aspect of what God has planned and purpose for us. And look at your neighbor. He has a plan and purpose specifically for them. Amen? So, here's the really cool thing. My purpose, my plan, is not the same as Matt's. If we were the same, one of us would be unnecessary. So Matt's plan and my plan, there may be some similarities at times, but it's not the exact same. And if we're going to walk in the fullness of every aspect so we can move up and fulfill everything that God has planned a purpose for us, we've got to learn this really key plan or principle of being faithful in little. I deal with people all the time that they want more and they want to be... I deal with a lot of people in a lot of different aspects, ministry aspects, leadership aspects, some government aspects. And so I deal with people on lots of different levels and lots of different types. And that most of them, they would like to someday obtain whatever. Okay? But their mindset or their mentality is, I'm waiting on the Lord to do it for me. Anybody know people like that? Anybody been like, don't raise your hand. Anybody been that people? We want the Lord to do it all, and yet we just want to show up and walk into it when it's supposed to happen. And there's an aspect of the balancing out. If we want to move up, we've got to understand that simple principle of faithfulness in the little or the little stuff. So how do we begin to walk in the faithfulness of the little stuff? We've got to begin to understand that we are to have an aspect of excellence or best. Okay? I tell people all the time, I am not the most talented person in the room. I am fully aware of that. Okay? I am fully aware I am not the most gifted, talented. I am by no means tech savvy. Okay? Heck, I'm using my phone a little bit this morning because I got some notes on it, and I'm hoping and praying I don't mess it up. I am not tech savvy. I know that. So I know there are times I'm sitting in a room with people who are very tech savvy. Some of those people, I can do more tech than they can because they don't bring best or excellence to the table. Catch what I just said? There's times I sit in rooms with people who are tech savvy. They know tech stuff, but they don't understand excellence and they don't understand bringing their best. And when I bring excellence and I bring best, I may not be tech savvy, but because I have excellence and best, I can do more with the tech than they can. Okay? I sit in rooms with people that are highly gifted and anointed and have all kinds of talent and ability. And, I mean, they can walk in a room and everybody in the room is like, ooh and awe. But if they don't understand the aspect of walking in the best and being the best at what the God of all creation has specifically planned and purposed for them, then if I'm walking in perfection or seeking the perfection of best and excellence, I can be better than them. Now, it's not a competition. Hear what I said. It's not a competition. But see, we've got to be the understanding. Not everybody is the best at everything. Correct? Okay? So not everybody is the best at everything. Not everybody is the best at sports. As much as little Johnny and little Susie, and you're hoping they will become a baseball star, a softball star, basketball star, the chances of that happening are like 1 in 1.5, 1.2 million people. And yet we have a lot of parents that they think their little Johnny or their little Susie is going to be the next huge sports person. And so there's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of putting on them things that it's like, man, some of these children I feel so sorry for. But then there are those children that, man, baseball is just no big deal to them. They have a natural gift and natural talent for it. I know a couple that their granddaughter is doing softball. And they're like, we don't know where she got that gift at, but she's really good. Okay? Now, they have another granddaughter that they're like, you throw the ball at her and it might hit her in the face. So the one granddaughter's really good at sports and the other granddaughter is not. So there are those that they're best in business. I know individuals in the business realm that they have an idea, and that idea will produce money. That idea will cause an effect to take place that it meets the need of people and changes an area. I know a business guy that he had an idea of something that will help change a community. He started implementing it, and dear God, everybody in the community recognized the change. Okay? Now, I wish I had that kind of just an inkling of the best of that understanding. I don't. How do you change those things? If you aren't the best at something, find those who are the best at and have them help you. Amen? So, if I have a problem with my phone, guess what? I don't find some old fart like me. I go find a kid. Hey, I can't figure out how to work this thing. Can you help me out? Why? Because they tend to know how to work that thing. Okay? So, everybody is not best at everything, but everybody can do your best at whatever it is you put your hand to do. I'll repeat that if you're taking notes. Everybody can do your best at whatever it is you put your hand to do. We want to move up. We desire to move up. We would like to move up to another level. How do that begin to take place? We've got to begin to do the best at whatever it is we put our hand to do. What is it that you have responsibility at? So, during the school year, I drive a school bus. I desire to be the best school bus driver that my kids on my bus have. Now, I'm not there to be their best friend. And some of them know that now. But if they are in trouble, I'm going to do everything I can to be the first one at their side, helping them. I desire to be the best school bus driver those kids have. My route, I've driven almost 20-something years. So I know most of my families. I know most of my children. I will tell you, it makes you really feel old when they call you and go, hey, you got a new pickup starting tomorrow, and they give you the address, and you're going, I know that address. How do I know that address? And then you pull up and you go, oh, I picked up students here. And then when the little kindergartner or first graders get on the school bus and their mama or their daddy's going, oh, Mr. Smith, I'm so glad you're still driving. Whoa, hold on, I ain't that old. But you leave an impression. I don't know about anybody else, but I found, Donnie and Danielle, you may have experienced this because you guys work in the same transportation department I do. So there are times I go to Walmart or I go to Kroger or I go to a store, and the kids who tend to be my biggest problem makers are the ones that are so ecstatic and excited to see me. And they're the ones that want to introduce me to their mommy and their daddy. And when their mom or dad go, so how are they acting on the bus? I usually look at them and go, would you like to tell them how you behave? But I desire to be the best bus driver I can be. Why? Because I understand that in that role, I have a responsibility of every little kid that rides on my bus. Well, some of them are so little. Some of them are, high school, and they're taller and way more athletic and could whoop me really quick if they wanted to. But I've learned that if I'm going to make the impression I need to make, however long down the road that may be, I'm going to be the best bus driver I can be. And I have students to this day that when you don't see them for 10 years, 15 years, and you run into them and they're like, oh, hey, Mr. Smith, how are you doing? It's like, doing good. Who are you? You don't remember me? I rode your bus. Blah, blah. And then, okay, you're going to have to give me a hint. When you were riding my bus, where did you sit? How well behaved were you? Which usually goes, well, I was the one that did. Oh, I remember you. I had a student at Christmas time. Mom and I went to Walmart because she needed to get a few things. So we went to Walmart, and we're going down the aisle, and this young man comes walking towards me, and as he gets to the cart, he goes, Mr. Smith, I thought that was you. And I'm like, recognize who he was because his facial features have not really changed much. And I was like, hey, how are you? He asked about his mom and dad, how his siblings were doing, how his youngest brother was doing, who his youngest brother has started riding my bus in kindergarten. And his youngest brother graduated high school. And I was like, dude, what? How can that be possible? So we're sitting here, we're chit-chatting. And he says, Mr. Smith, I will never forget when I was getting off the bus one afternoon and you told me something that made me realize that I need to change some things. I wish I'd asked him because I ain't got a clue on that conversation. But this kid, he was heading to be in a whole lot of trouble. And so one afternoon, he was getting off the bus. I made a statement to him. I don't even know what the statement was. But I do remember his mom, and I ran to her. I don't know. It was a matter of months, maybe even a year afterwards. And she's like, thank you. And I was like, for what? She said, for what you told him. She said, we were sitting at supper that night, and he wasn't eating much. And she said, are you okay? Yeah, I'm just thinking about what Mr. Smith told me this afternoon. And she said, what did he tell you? And basically it boiled down to, if you keep doing what you're going to do, you're in a whole lot of trouble, and you're better than this. And she said, thank you for believing in my kid. We can tell him all day long he's better than this, but coming from you meant something. And when I ran to him at Christmas, he referenced that and he said, if you had not told me what you told me on a school bus that afternoon, I'd have been sitting down here rather than having a job, married, and a kid. And he said, you changed my life because you believed in me. And he walks away because he had to go because his family was waiting on him. And there's times I'm like, I would really like to run into him again to see what exactly is it that I said so I can use it again on the next problem kid. But see, there are times if we understand our role of being the best at whatever it might be that we're putting our hands to, it could very well change the future of somebody. Amen. And if nothing else ever happens with driving a school bus and nobody, the kid, ever gets to be better, then at least that kid did. Now, I know he's not the only one because I've had other kids tell me some things over the years when they become adults and they're like, oh, thank you for this, blah, 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 blah. But there's many aspects of we desire to move up in something, and in our desire to move up, we got to understand, let's be faithful in the little things that we have responsibility to do. Now, has it always been this point of I'm giddy when I get up in the morning? I don't think I've ever gotten up giddy in the morning going to go look for a school bus. But I have this understanding that during the school year, every Monday through Friday that we have school, I have an opportunity to impact at least one student every single day. And if I will do the best at being that bus driver that I can be and that I should be, I know that at some point in time, that student, whomever one it is, that student will be able to have the right words said, the right moment of a smile, the right, hey, it's good to see you, hey, you're better than this, whatever that will change the course of something for them. Guess what? You have the same opportunity. Your workplace. When somebody comes into your workplace, depending on what your workplace is and the interaction you have, there are opportunities you have in that interaction that if you are understanding, I'm going to do the best I can with the responsibility I have, then you're going to leave an impact on some aspect of their life. I remember back years and years ago when I first started driving a school bus, and I was a sub-bus driver. I'll tell you what, you want to learn accounting real quick, become a sub-bus driver. And back in the day when I started driving a school bus, the dispatcher would go, here's the address. When you leave with the school bus, you turn right or you turn left and you go to whatever, and your first kid that you pick up will be able to tell you where to go. That was our directions of the bus route. Okay? Had one time, I was given those instructions. The bus is parked here. You're going to leave there. You're going to turn. You're going to go. And you're going to drive down to the next stop sign. And you're going to turn right. And you're going to drive maybe a quarter of a mile. And there's going to be a kid on the left-hand side of the road. Okay. I follow the instructions. There's a kid on the left-hand side of the road. I stop and pick the kid up. And I'm like, hey, you're going to have to help me with the route. And that kid was like, oh, all right, yes. Do you know where you're going? Oh, yeah, I know where we're going. I'm picking up kids, and I have about 15 kids on my bus, and I'm coming around a corner, and there's another school bus coming the opposite way, and his arm is out the window. So I stop, and we're sitting there, and he goes, what are you doing? I got called this morning. I'm filling in for this route, and he goes, I'm here. Well, this kid sitting right behind me, this kid was my first pickup, and he said he knew the route, so he's helped me go around. And that bus driver sees the kid, and he goes, calls him by name, and he goes, don't get off the bus when you get to school. You're waiting on me. And he said, get him to where he's supposed to be because you do know the route, and it's not this route. Well, come to find out, that kid was taking me around to pick up all his buddies. And where I met that bus driver was about 8 miles from where I should have been. So I got to the school, guess what? That bus driver was waiting because I got there late. All the other kids are getting off the bus. This kid's going to try and sneak off the bus. And that bus driver's standing there and he goes, whoa, hold on. I told you to get back on that bus. So he gets back on the bus. And boy, that kid, the next morning, he gets on my bus and it's, yes, sir, this way. Man, I got to school on time. I ran into that kid a few years down the road after that. He was an adult by that time. Anyway, I ran into that kid, and that kid walks up to me and he goes, did you used to drive a school bus? Yeah, I still drive a school bus. Who are you? I'm that kid that was going to help you when you were driving a bus route over in Greenbrier, and the bus driver flagged you down and stopped you. I was that kid. Oh, I talk about you a lot. He's like, oh, great. And he said, I need to apologize to you. I'm like, For what? He goes, I knew better. He said, my mom and dad, we were in church every single week. If my mom and dad knew what I did, I'd have got whooped. And he said, so I need to apologize to you for doing that. All those years later. And I was like, all right, well, that's cool. So what do you do? He told me he manages some pretty good-sized factory in Goodlettsville, Madison area. And I was like, cool, man, congratulations. He goes, yeah, that day of doing that, and he called the other bus driver by name. He said, he walked me into the office, and the whole way into the office, he's telling me, you know better. Why did you do this, that bus driver? I know your parents. I know your family. You're better than this, kid. Why are you doing this? And he said, man, if I hadn't had that pep talk between your bus that you were driving that day and getting into the office, I would not be doing what I'm doing today. See, there's times in doing the best at whatever your hand is put to do, man, it will make an impact. And in making that impact, you do move up. You leave an impression on somebody. We've got to become the best at whatever it is that you and I have to do. And if you're doing your best, then when your opportunity comes, you'll be ready and you won't flop. I know lots of people, they are waiting on their opportunity. They're waiting on their opportunity. They're waiting on their opportunity. Their butt's getting sore because they're sitting so long. Their muscles are getting stiff because they ain't using them. Their joints are hurting because they're sitting. And there's no activity. And then when their opportunity comes, they've missed it because they can't get up out of the seat. Y'all got... And we see lots of missed opportunities. I don't know about you, but I don't want to keep missing opportunities. Let me try that one again. I don't want to miss opportunities. I want to be found faithful in the little stuff that I have to be faithful in. I want to be the best pastor I can be. I want to be the best speaker I can be, the best bus driver I can be, the best leader I can be. I want to be the best at what I'm supposed to be. Amen? Heard this statement last night, and it's like, wow, what a statement. And the person who made the statement's like, so I really can't take credit for the statement. I don't even know who made the statement, but it's a really good statement. So I'm going to basically go, I don't know who made the statement, and I'm not giving him credit for the statement because he didn't make the statement initially either. So we ain't got a clue who gave the statement, but here's the statement. Amateurs practice until they get it right. Professionals practice until they can't get it wrong. I'll repeat that. If you're writing notes, I'd encourage you to write this down because, man, what a statement. Amateurs practice until they get it right. I used to be an amateur. Practice, practice, practice until I got it right. Now, I do my best to be professional. And professionals practice until they can't get it wrong. So, I've referenced I'm a school bus driver. So, every time we have an in-service, what are we told, Donnie? We are professionals.